Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
I'm Anne-Marie Molinari Sanders. I'm going to be your host today. And joining me today is my co-host, Dr. Olga Escamilla. So thank you so much, Olga, for being here. Our presenters today are Jonathan Mize, Giovanni Torrencio, and Arthur Jones, and they are joining us from Texas Workforce Commission Vocational Rehabilitation Services. Mr. Jonathan Mize currently works as a Business Relations Coordinator Program Specialist for Texas Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation Services in Waco, serving customers in the heart of Texas, Central Texas, and the capital area, the rural capital area, and the Brazos Valley Workforce Board areas as part of Region 3, Central Texas. Jonathan has over 25 years of work experience with a variety of public sector agencies that include the Texas Workforce Commission, the former Legacy Department of Assistive Rehabilitative Services Agency, and the Legacy Texas Commission for the Blind, and the Texas Rehabilitation Commission organizations that includes work as VR counselor for DARS, the Division of Rehabilitation Services, transition counselor for the Texas Commission for the Blind, covering Fort Worth, Abilene, and San Angelo work areas, and work as an employment assistance specialist for the Texas Commission for the Blind. Mr. Mize received an Associate of Science degree from South Plains College, a Bachelor of Science degree, magna cum laude, rehabilitation, and a Master of Arts in Rehabilitation Counseling from Stephen F. Austin State University. Our second presenter is Miss Giovanni Torrencio. She currently works as a community outreach and awareness specialist for the Texas Workforce Solutions VR services. Giovanni's primary goal is to bring awareness of VR services to the community. Ms. Torrencio is also a certified rehabilitation counselor with 17 years of experience working with vocational rehabilitation. Giovanni has worked for the state of Texas for over 30 years. Beginning with a job training partnership, unemployment insurance, food stamps, Medicaid, and TANF before she was hired by vocational rehabilitation to manage a mental health caseload for 10 years. She worked at Central Texas Region Office as a program specialist. Rounding out our fabulous group, Mr. Arthur Jones. Mr. Jones currently works as a business relations coordinator for the Texas Workforce Solutions VR services. Arthur served in the United States Army for 24 years. Thank you for your service, Arthur. After retiring, he received a master's degree in business administration from Texas A&M as the business relations coordinator for the state of Texas. He provides training to employers in the areas of diversity and accommodations, including assistive technology and inclusion. Mr. Jones also assists individual customers with disabilities in locating, acquiring, and retaining employment. As the BRC, Arthur works in the Austin-Travis County area and the surrounding counties, assisting employers in meeting their employment goals with qualified candidates, as well as assisting the individuals with disabilities finding competitive employment.
We're going over the topic of disability awareness with bottom line benefits for vocational rehabilitation. We'll go through a few different sections of disability awareness and lead into some of our programs and also a little bit about assistive technology. My name is Jonathan Mize, our Regional Business Relations Coordinator through Central Texas Region with Texas Workforce Commission Vocational Rehabilitation Services. So defining disability, and we define disability, we kind of go by the definition, federal language with federal law with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the key piece is the limiting of one or more major life activities where a person either has a disability or is regarded as having a disability. And a major life activity, the key piece to remember off this slide, is life activity can be communication, can be travel, it can be organization. And you think travel is a life activity. How do you get to and from work? How do you get to and from a doctor? Communication, being able to communicate independently with the public. Some situations such as speech conditions, hearing loss, visual conditions can be how do you read communication? Are key pieces and examples of how you apply those types of life activities in the defining parameters of a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So people first language. With that, historically in the past, we many times, not knowing we didn't know years back, we would call the individual by their disability first, then who they were as the person, such as an autistic person, a mentally retarded person, someone bound by a wheelchair, those different examples, but they are a person first. So a person who has autism, a person with intellectual developmental delay is what we would refer to somebody who years ago we may have called that individual mentally retarded. Person who requires the use of a wheelchair, because again, the dignity lies upon the person. They're a person first. So visible and non-visible principles is what we're going to go through next. Is there's various differences between a visible disability and an invisible disability. The visible disability, and you see a couple of examples. A physical disability, developmental disability. Developmental, sometimes visually you can tell somebody has a cognitive impairment. Many times in years past, you may have heard of folks who had Down syndrome. There's a facial feature, maybe some features with their hands that are a little different. Physical impairment obvious, where maybe use of a wheelchair, a support cane, different things of that nature. Paralysis and different things where visually you can notice that that's a disability clear to you. The invisible examples. Different types of sensory impairments can fall into this factor, such as deafness or hard of hearing. Also vision loss, because there are some types of vision loss where the person is not fully blind, but has some partial sight still, but significant vision that is lost. Epilepsy is another example. And that's kind of tied to the seizure disorders, cognitive impairments, and as well mental health impairments. Almost all mental health impairments are very common to be what we see as an invisible disability. You don't know that person has the disability visibly just by seeing them, but they may be struggling with anxiety, post-traumatic stress, depression, different examples of that nature. These are kind of the core foundational principles that can give you confidence and assurance when you're working with somebody with a disability, or you serve somebody or encounter somebody with a disability. So putting that individual first and their disability second helps to start the message and start the rapport right. Again, they're a person before they are a disability. And asking before you help is key, because they will often be your best guide. But if you just help first, you're making an assumption of what you think is the best fit for what they need for their learning. So physical boundaries and things, be sensitive to that. There are some disabilities that is very much an important piece. We'll see in a few slides, such as the deaf and hard of hearing culture. And similar to the ask before you help is also think before you speak, because you again may want to process what you feel you're wanting to help this individual with. And when you think about it some, it may help guide what you really need to ask that person. And do not make assumptions. That goes kind of almost like a twin brother or sister to the ask before you help. So if you ask before, you also are not going to assume. Not assuming that you have somebody such as with vision loss coming into a classroom, you don't know how are they going to learn and perform. It's hard to assume what those possibilities are, pull that out of your equation, and then just ask that individual. They likely will help fill in the blanks for you. And if someone makes a request for something that may be new to you, just respond graciously to find out how you need to take care of that. One great example, maybe somebody with diabetes. If you're in a teaching classroom situation for a number of hours in a day, and they may need some breaks for getting some snacks that they brought by just to keep their sugars regulated. That's a very unique request, perhaps to your students, but a very important request that may come your way. Peeling the layers deeper, if you will, we're going to start looking at different types of impairment categories and different ways that you can help that person, things you can learn about of how to work with that population. So with vision impairments, that's our first group. Speaking directly to that person with the vision impairment, especially if there's someone that's totally blind, that's helpful because that helps them also to speak directly back to you because they hear verbally where you are. And that's helpful because visually they don't really see where you are, but they're going to catch where your voice was. When you enter a room or come in to begin a class or need to step out, entering first to identify who you are. Let's say if your name is Jane and you're starting out the class, that's helpful. If you need to step out and you have to go get something, say, I will be back. I'll be back in a few minutes. I need to go grab something from the copier. If you just walk out without addressing that you're leaving, sometimes that person with the vision loss thinks you're still there. And it affects the relationship because they don't know visually. So verbally greeting and exiting helps the dialogue. And clear directions, such as maybe if there's something where restrooms are located, or maybe if there's a room where you have to turn in assignments. If you may, when you walk out of the classroom, you say, the second room on your left is where you turn in the paperwork, or the restrooms are the first door on your right. Those are going to be helpful because they know their left and their right, but they need to know the clarity on directions rather than just saying, down the hall a little ways is where the restrooms are located. Non-visually, they're not going to know what a little ways means. Also, clock position is a helpful piece where if something is on the desk, a good point to know for demonstration purposes, if you maybe provide them a pen, they have to sign something or initial something, you can tell them this pen I provide you is at 10 o'clock. That's helpful because they know what the 10 o'clock position is on the clock, and that'll help them find where that pen is on the desk. And as well, guide dogs with this population, if the dog has their harness on, the dog is at work. So you need to ask if you can pet the dog. Sometimes people have an affinity to animals, and that's okay. But the dog, while they're on the harness, many times the person who is blind knows that dog is in a working mode. So they may not allow you to pet the dog while the harness is on. The physical and mobility impairment customer base, and this ties to the group of the one disability that's more common than any other out there in our country, which is arthritis, for example. Not everybody with arthritis has support canes or wheelchairs and those nature, but sometimes people get to that point. Physical impairment is the one historically that people more than not know what a disability looks like because that's what they usually see. So with a wheelchair, for example, the individual in the wheelchair may be kind of slightly against where an entry of a door is, for example, and you may have a feel that you need to push or move the wheelchair, but do not do that if you can have that be allowed, and ask if they can move their wheelchair to the side a little bit, because remember, the chair is a part of that person. It's part of who they are. It'd be like if somebody walked up to you and just pushed you to the side. And if the conversation is a little bit more than a brief kind of yes or no, it's helpful to kind of get a chair, if you can, where you're at the same eye level as the individual with the wheelchair for good rapport, and visual level where it's even. Also, the area about walkways and things that are maybe something in the way, kind of keep an eye about that. And that's important to know because you may want to make sure something may be in the way to kind of move that aside so you have a good pathway for the individual who's going to be using the wheelchair. Also, the customer with the wheelchair, they may have their hand and they may want to shake a hand or just the same as anybody else, but maybe the hand, part of the hand is not even there, maybe tied to the disability, and or maybe a prosthetic limb. But it's okay to shake that because if they reach that out, that's their way of trying to build rapport and be professional with you just the same. And reach limits are key because let's say if you have something where could be even where a coat can be hung in a classroom in rainy days, cold days. If that coat limit is pretty high and reach limits are high, you may want to see if there's not a thing that can adjust that. Maybe you could ask if I could take your coat, or if it's something that needs to be hung, that you can help with that if there's not a lower reach limit that can help the individual with the wheelchair. So just a couple of points with those that are helpful for that population. With the deaf and hard of hearing population, and with this population base, the body language is key. And as we talked about the physical distances a few moments back on the basics, because they look at your physical appearance, they look at your physical reaction, look at your facial features, many of those things when they're trying to read lips, get your reaction. So their spacing with you is going to be a little farther apart than some other individuals with different disabilities. So you want to gain their attention. Many times you have a question. Sometimes they may be partially hearing, but if you walk beside them and say something, they may not be able to hear you. So you may want to be face to face to gain their attention. And as well, if you have an interpreter where you're working with the individual who has hearing loss and an interpreter is with that individual as an accommodation, the interpreter many times speaks quite well auditorily. You may want to look at the interpreter in the dialogue, but remember the individual with the hearing loss is your customer. So maintain contact with the individual who is deaf, not the interpreter. So one of the other groups has been out here quite a while for a number of years, but a lot more focused, as we know, and that's customers in the autism spectrum disorder family of disabilities. So some key pieces to know about this customer is a preparation is important with your class information and as well structure. Visual cues is also key. A schedule is very important. And breaking tasks down specifically. And the reason why these things are helpful is when their mind, when they process this information, they really strive upon a good structure, good preparation in the environment. They as well also look at the tasks that they have to break down, and they go by that to stay with that to be successful. So if those things change up and the schedule is very fluid, it will affect them being able to participate. They may get anxious. They may get very questioning about things. So things that can stay consistent do help this population. So the developmental disabilities and learning impairment customers that a lot of times kind of flow very similar to each other in this group, where you have clear directions are very helpful. Patience within the directions you're providing is also key. And a consistent routine about your instruction, about your approach or directions is going to be very helpful. And being very concrete and hands-on about instructions is going to be very helpful. And all these things so far, while they're helpful, is the way their mind is processing things, they need to get this down in a concrete manner. And there are times you may have to repeat those instructions and be patient about having to go through the steps all over again. So that's helpful with this population. They will get it down and are very successful, a lot of times more where things are hands-on and very patient. So confidentiality is a common piece whenever we work in our customer base. We serve as individuals with disabilities on this slide to know why that's important to be aware of that, because a person with vision loss, what's helpful to know is they are going to be able to be in a situation where they need to be able to talk with you one-on-one, and they need to be able to have your confidence that it's something that's not shared with other people. Your confidence in them is paramount because they are putting in their information to you with building trust in you about their disability situation. Many times that can be something with learning, something with their schedule, something that they feel could even be an environmental issue that they need help with in the disability, such as somebody with a physical impairment, could even be somebody with autism spectrum as well for the maybe visual and auditory issues that are going on. So we're going to go through a couple of scenarios in the last few slides, and I will go through these and we'll give you the information, as it's also key to know kind of what's best that fits with this scenario and would be the best answer. So John is an individual you're working with that you're giving instructions to, and he seems to be struggling to understand the instructions you're providing to him. So what would be the best strategy to help John? So would you want to A, talk louder, B, talk slower to John. Or C, repeat the instructions till John understands. So the correct answer for this would be C, to kind of do that piece, similar to what we ran into with the developmental and the learning impairment customer base may need to repeat instructions. So Jose is an individual who uses a wheelchair, and you need to ask Jose a question. So with asking Jose a question, what should you do in this situation? You could do option A, is kneeling down to ask Jose the question. B option would be to pull the wheelchair to get his attention. C, simply ask Jose the question. Now, in this situation, it can be A or C. C would be a very brief yes or no type of question for Jose's feedback. But if it's a more detailed response, you may need to write down some answers that Jose is providing, or a more of a follow-up question scenario. A would be appropriate, kneeling down or getting a chair to be at the same eye level as Jose. So when you sit down to Dan at lunchtime and start conversing with Dan, you notice that Dan has some trouble speaking. So situations you would encounter with Dan. A, would you pretend you understood what Dan said? B, smile and get up as fast as you can. And or C, repeat what you understood and ask him to repeat anything you might have missed. C is your best answer because you're going to repeat what you understood. You know you missed some things. Ask him if he can repeat something you might have missed. That starts out the best dialogue, and hopefully we're not going to do A or B. So Sandy is someone who uses a cane. Looks like she's having trouble with her cane. Perhaps when she's getting up or maybe moving to another part of the room. Some examples you can encounter with Sandy. And one option is A, would you ask if she needs help? B, leave Sandy alone. C, hold her arm to assist her. A is your best fit because asking Sandy might help. Sandy may just be needing to get her balance about her and may do fine. Sandy may take you up on your help, or Sandy may have a plan already in place of what she's doing and maybe just standing up. Sometimes with some medications and things someone takes with their disability, things look unsteady at first, and Sandy may say she has it taken care of.
Hello, everyone. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about vocational rehabilitation. Texas Workforce Vocational Rehabilitation used to be known as DARS, and before that actually was known as Texas Rehab Commission. So a lot of people knew us as either of those, but what we do is we provide a variety of services to assist individuals that are eligible for our services, that they have a disability. We help them prepare for, obtain, retain, or advance in a job. So we serve people that are currently employed, people that are not employed. So we serve a variety of different disabilities. Physical disabilities would be a medical condition that impairs a person's ability to perform daily tasks and live independently. Psychological and neurodevelopmental disorders can be disorders that cause psychological and behavioral disturbances with varying severities. And then impairments in neurological functioning that affect behavior, cognition, or motor skills. And we also serve individuals with sensory disabilities, so vision and hearing loss. So some examples of services that we provide: everyone that receives services from us receives vocational counseling and guidance. So we're here to help them figure out what are their strengths, what are their limitations, and help them reach their employment goal. So a lot of times as the community outreach person, I'm at a fair. And so, you want people to come to your table, and I'll often say, hey, come on over here. We make your dreams come true. And that's what we like to say, is that we will help people reach their goals. So we also help with assessments to determine how the disability affects an ability to work and what the person's needs are. We refer people to community support systems, so like adult education, peer support groups, or advocacy organizations. And then we also provide assistance with returning to work, job retention, job development, and job placement assistance. So some examples continued would be assistive devices such as hearing aids, prosthetics, wheelchairs, and technology to improve the functioning on a job. We also help with physical restoration services such as medical services, physical therapy, surgeries. Those are things that a lot of people don't realize that we can help with. But if it's affecting that person's ability to do their job, then we do help with that. An example that I always give is if I sit behind a desk all day and just type, and I don't do a lot of heavy lifting for my career, and I were to apply for voc rehab because I had a hernia and I needed to have that repaired, I may not be eligible because that hernia is not affecting my ability to do my job. But if we can show that that hernia is affecting somebody's ability to do their job, then they might be eligible for services. So we also help with mental restoration, psychological and psychiatric services. So a lot of times if somebody's been out of school for 5 years, they don't have records of their ARDs if they were receiving accommodations or modifications, and they might need a new psychological evaluation to get the accommodations that they need if they're planning on post-secondary education. And then we help with vocational and academic training. So all of our services are tailored to the individual. The support and development of knowledge, skills, abilities, resources, behaviors needed to reach their employment goal. So no two customers receive the exact same services. One person will receive what they need to help them reach their employment goal. Training services. We offer a variety of training services, and these are reasonable and necessary training services that will help the person reach their employment goal. So we're going to help that person. We help them figure out what their employment goal is. And then if that employment goal requires additional education and training, we're going to help support them with that. So workplace readiness training to develop social skills and independent living. These are some of the services that we help provide. We can help with financial literacy. We can help with orientation and mobility skills. That's for individuals with vision impairments. Job seeking skills, understanding employer expectations for punctuality and performance. We will help somebody if they're receiving Social Security disability, and you hear people say all the time, well, I can't work because I get a check and I fought so long and hard for that check that I don't want it to affect my benefits. Well, we're going to help that person with benefits planning to help them learn how their benefits would be impacted by working. A lot of times the people at the Social Security office, unfortunately, don't give people the right information. And we have people that are trained benefits experts that can help people understand how employment can affect their benefits. So send them to us because we can help with that. Our services start with individuals at the age of 14, and there's no maximum. We have helped individuals in their 80s and 90s that were still employed and wanted to continue employment. And so with individuals that are 14 through 22, they fit into our transition program. And if they are attending a public school, then we more than likely have a counselor assigned to that school. They would contact their school counselor. A lot of times the schools tend to refer individuals that are in special education, but they forget about the students that are in 504. And I sure wish that we would get more referrals from individuals that are receiving 504 services, because we can really work with them on all of these skills to help them not graduate onto their parents' sofa. That's the current legislation we're under is WIOA, the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. And we can help people develop a plan for what they're going to do after they finish their high school years. And I know a lot of times you'll work with individuals that graduated and they want to go on to school, and we're here to help them. So you've got students that are in special education, and those are usually students that are identified as the most significantly disabled. But students that are 504, they also have annual ARD meetings, and they receive accommodations or modifications to help them through the school so that they can be integrated into regular classrooms and not set aside into special education classrooms. Self-advocacy skills. This is something that unfortunately a lot of people with disabilities don't have, whether it was because their parents didn't want them to focus on their disability. I know when I worked with young people, I'll ask them, were you in special education, or did you receive any accommodations or modifications? And they'll say, oh, yes. But then if I ask what was their disability, they look at me with deers in the headlight because they don't know what their disability is. Their parents didn't want them to focus on their disability. And so it's really hard for people to advocate for themselves if they don't know what their disability is. So we help people have the knowledge and know what their rights and responsibilities are so that they can ask for any accommodations on a work site that they might need, or with education that they work with the Office of Disability Services. The self-advocacy training we help with is to assist students identify, document, and explain what their needed accommodations are. Some of you may or may not know about JAN, the Job Accommodations Network. Ask JAN is a great resource for people that need to ask for accommodations. And of course, Voc Rehab helps with that as well. So personal social adjustment training is one of the things that we can do. This helps teach skills related to acceptable work behavior and improves interpersonal skills. Sometimes people can get a job, but keeping the job can be a difficulty. And so we can offer personal social adjustment training to help develop some of those soft skills. Work adjustment training is designed to improve work behaviors and enhance interpersonal skills while the person is working. And then vocational adjustment training, we have a bunch of different classes that are structured to help a person learn and adjust to daily workplace routines. And I've listed some of the classes. They're exploring the you in work, soft skills to work success, soft skills to pay the bills, entering the world of work, preparing for job search, disability disclosure training, Money Smart, a financial education training, and public transportation training. So those are all individual classes. We can order them for individuals that might need one or all of them. And so just want you guys to be aware of those are some of the resources that we can help with. If you're working with somebody that you think could benefit from those that has a disability, please send them our way. So work experience. We also can help with work experience. This can be 12-week part-time work to help somebody learn the skills so that they can gain some employment skills that can be transferred into ongoing long-term employment. Counseling on opportunities for enrollment in education programs at institutions of higher education. We help people that are interested in attending community college to get an associate's degree, attending a university, whether it's public or private. We can help with career pathways related to workshops, training program, trade schools, technical schools. So this includes like cosmetology, barbering. I've had individuals that wanted to get certified in landscape irrigation technician. There's a lot of different certification programs. I've got a gentleman I'm working with right now. He can go to a weekend training that we'll pay for to get his irrigation technician. And he's already working for somebody and they want him to get this training and they're going to be able to keep him working. So those are the kinds of things that we can help with. Trade and technical schools, if somebody's interested in the military, post-secondary education programs at colleges or universities, So an example would be to help somebody learn about the accommodations that are allowed for the different entrance exams that are available to go to the different places. So we help with assessments for training at colleges or universities. Before we complete a plan for employment for somebody, the counselor does assessments with the customer to determine whether they're going to be successful. We always say as VR counselors, the worst thing we can do is set somebody up for failure. So we want to make sure that the person has the strengths and the abilities to be successful in that program. When some of the assessments include a review of the customer's previous academic achievement. So we're going to look at what their school transcripts were, existing or new cognitive evaluations. Again, that's like if somebody hasn't been in school for the last 5 years, we would probably set them up for a psychological evaluation, a full psychological evaluation, not just a generalized that just gives you limited information. We're going to set them up for a whole evaluation that's going to give us needed information that will help us determine if they're going to be successful. We also look to determine whether they're going to need remedial classes, whether they've got those independent living skills, if they're planning on going to school somewhere where they don't currently live or moving out from under their parents. We want to know that they have the ability to manage the related time demands to the program that they're planning on attending, and the need for assistive technology or accommodations that they might need to be successful. So students have to provide verification that they've applied for financial aid. We can't do it for them. That's one of the things that they are required to do. We require that they provide us a degree plan for the program that they're interested in, and a registration of the classes, a bill for their tuition, and then every semester they've got to provide their grades and progress reports to us. They've got to maintain a full-time course load. There are exceptions to that for their very first semester and of course their very last semester. And there are some medical reasons that they might not have a full-time course load, but we want them to be able to get through the program in a reasonable amount of time. We want them to contact the counselor before they add or drop any classes. And we want them to request accommodations prior to the classes. That's very important. And they, of course, have to maintain satisfactory progress according to that training program. Some of the goods and services that support training services, these are the things that we can help with. We can help with textbooks and supplies, a reader, if that's something that they require, assistive technology equipment and software, low vision devices, a vocational rehabilitation teacher to help them learn how to get around or help them learn what they need to do, employment assistance specialist, training related supplies, transportation. We want to make sure that they're going to be able to get to where they need to be, interpreters, if that's something that's required, room and board, occupational licenses, if they require a license once they finish their training, computers. Now, we don't buy everybody a computer if there's some that are available at the school, but we do help with computers. And then orientation and mobility training, and of course, referral to community resources. Knowledge check number 5, you're explaining VR services to an adult education and literacy student in your class. Which VR services are available to the student? Is it A, assessments to determine how the disability affects their ability to work and the vocational rehabilitation need? Is it B, assistive devices such as hearing aids, prosthetic braces, wheelchairs, or technology to improve functioning on the job? C, job exploration counseling. D, orientation and mobility services for visually impaired students. E, instructions in self-advocacy, or F, all of the above options.
Can VR services, if they meet eligibility, can they help with maybe providing the assistive technology and things like that?
Absolutely. What a wonderful question. And that actually kind of takes me into the next part of my presentation, which is talking about our services, our eligibility and plans for employment and all of that. Vocational rehabilitation is a process. And so you want people to start that process as soon as possible, because they don't usually just come to us and boom, we're writing a plan for employment. Only once in my 10 years in the field was I able to take an application, determine somebody's eligibility, and write their plan for employment all in the very same day. For the most part, we follow federal guidelines in going through that process. So just kind of walking you through that process, the first thing is for them to contact us. And we've got information to help you on how they can contact us. Then the application. So usually once they contact us, it's usually about within 30 days that we're going to be taking their application. After we take their application, they're going to have to sign medical release forms. And once we get their medical records to verify that there's a disability, we'll determine that they're eligible. And we hope to do that within 60 days. Again, as soon as we get those medical records, we can determine that eligibility. That's when we start what we call assessment and planning. We gather the information to do a comprehensive assessment so that we know what that person's strengths and limitations are. We know what their goal is, so that we're ready to write their plan for employment that's going to lead to successful closure. So requirements for eligibility is that they've got to be present in the state of Texas. So we don't have necessarily a residency requirement, but we do require that they be able to come to one of our offices if needed. Of course, they've got to be legally eligible to work in the United States. All the services that we provide are to help somebody get a job. And so they need to be able to work in the United States and be a taxpayer. And they've got to have a disability that results in a substantial barrier to employment. They've got to need our services, that our services will help them prepare for, obtain, retain, or advance in employment. And they've got to be able to work independently as a result of our services. So we've got 4 criteria that they have to meet in order to be eligible for our services. The first criteria is that they've got to have a physical, mental, and I'll say sensory disability. So they've got to have some type of a impairment, and we've got to have medical records verifying that. If they have not seen a doctor, or if they don't have medical records, we will send them for evaluations to get those medical records. If somebody doesn't know exactly what their disability is, and sometimes people don't, but if you suspect that somebody has a disability with learning or reading or math or any type of an impairment, if you suspect it, please refer them for our services. That disability has to result in their ability to keep the job. It's got to affect their ability to work. And then the third one is that they need our services in order to get a job, keep a job, or advance in a job. And then the last one is that they've got to be capable of achieving an employment outcome. So sometimes we meet with people and we're not sure, they've never worked, and we're not sure because their disability might be pretty significant. That's okay. Send them our way and we will determine whether they're capable of achieving an employment outcome. We have ways of doing that. One of the things I love to stress is that eligibility for our services does not depend on income. Again, eligibility for services does not depend on income. We have people that make 10 times what I make that receive our services. A lot of times it's because they need a hearing aid or a vehicle modification or a prosthetic. Those are high dollar, high ticket items. All of our employment services, it doesn't matter what the person's income is. And if they're receiving Social Security disability, either SSI or SSDI, they are presumed eligible for our services. So what's the plan? Well, if someone's eligible for our services, the next step is going to be to help them develop a plan to help them reach their goal. So the plan includes their employment goal, the services that they're going to need to reach that goal, and what they've agreed to participate. So that can be that they're going to contact us every 30 days, every 60 days, every 90 days. And there will be things that we ask them to do, whether it's to turn in their degree plan or turn in their grades or make sure that they attend training and they're making good progress. So there are different benchmarks in that plan that we want to make sure that they're following. So Social Security benefits. Vocational rehabilitation must provide general information on additional supports and assistance for individuals receiving Social Security. This means that a customer who's eligible for our services must be offered benefits counseling prior to signing their plan for employment. The benefits planner must have an expected salary range to analyze how the earned income will affect a person's benefits. So one of the things we do is, well, we talk to the person about how many hours do you plan on working and how much per hour do you plan on earning. That helps us determine how, if they're receiving benefits, how work is going to affect their benefits. Okay, time for another knowledge check. So vocational rehabilitation, the eligibility model has 4 criteria that must be met. Are 2 of these criteria that the individual has a physical or mental impairment and that the impairment must result in a substantial impediment to employment. Is that true or is it false? Now I am going to hand this off to Arthur Jones, and he's going to take it away with the assistive technology information.
There are 3 categories of assistive technology. As you can see, there is no-tech, low-tech, and high-tech technology. A lot of people that are disabled don't really need a lot of assistive technology. They just need something that is going to give them that opportunity to communicate or function in their daily lives. And a no-tech technology, as you can see on the board, is a board that shows pictures. We had an individual that was a customer of ours that worked in a warehouse. They would send him to go to different areas of the warehouse, but he would be gone for long periods of time. Well, the warehouse was broken down into sectors, and the sectors were numbered. Give you an example, they would say, hey, we need you to go to sector 13. Well, he would walk around the warehouse for long periods of time and then either A, come back with the wrong item or come back with nothing at all. Come to find out the customer was dyslexic, and instead of looking for sector 13, he would be looking for sector 31. So what the warehouse did is they took all the numbers down of all the sectors and they put up pictures. And instead of saying going to sector 13, go to the baseball sector or go to the basketball sector. And it made it a lot easier. And that is a no-tech technology thing that could be done within an organization. And that's what that organization did for that individual, as an example. Also, no-tech technologies could be ramps and punch boards for Braille. The next category is low technology. And here in the pictures that you see, we have an inline amplifier for a telephone, magnifying glasses, or right-hand keyboards. We also had another individual that was in a wheelchair, and they had a problem with that person scooting up close enough to the desk to use her keyboard and perform the task that she needed to do on her computer. So they wanted to order a new desk, but it took a long time for that desk to come in. So one of the low-tech technology things that they did for that individual, all they did was took some cinder blocks, lifted the desk up, put the cinder blocks under the desk, which allowed that individual to slide the wheelchair under the desk. And that's a low-tech technology thing that can be done to help you in your day-to-day tasks or help individuals with disabilities in their day-to-day tasks. In our offices, Jonathan and I, we have what we call assistive technology kits. And there's these 2 big old tubs of all of this technology that we present to people so they can try it out for a little while. We loan them out. They can try them out to see if they like that technology and they can use that technology in their everyday lives and make their lives easier. And if so, like Giovanni said earlier, we could purchase that technology, whether it's computers or anything that will help you in your employment desires. The picture that you see on the screen is one of the keyboards for people that are visually impaired. And this is one of those low-tech technologies that I was talking about, which is also an input device, which we'll get into later, but it has big letters for those that are visually impaired, big letters and big numbers. There are 4 categories to high technology, and that's communication aids, computer access aids, hearing and listening aids, and vision and reading aids. And we're going to touch on each one of these categories just a little bit so you get an idea of what high technology is. Communication aids. These are items and equipment designed or adapted to help people with communicative disabilities, such as speech disabilities or writing difficulties. Now, I told you at the beginning of this about a board. It had picture board on it or a letter board on it. That would be a basic augmented communication way of communicating. And that's an example of one. There's many, but that is an example of one. And then you got those highly sophisticated speaking computers, which I will show you a picture of one later on. These are additional communication aids. And when you're talking about speech, you got communication boards, which we've talked about, speech synthesizers, text-to-speech software, and hand wands, light pointers, and mouth pointers. On the writing and typing aids, you have braille devices, note-taking devices or spelling aids, word prediction and completion software. Some of y'all see that completion software in your phones where you're typing a text and it'll give you word options to add to your whatever you're texting. Then you got modified keyboards, which I've already shown you a couple of pictures of one, like the right-hand one or the big lettered keyboards, and portable note-taking devices. Computer access aids. These are hardware, software products that enable people with disabilities to access, interact with, and use computers at their home, work, business environments, or at school. These types of devices allow that individual to access or input information they need to do inside their computers or whatever program that they're using. This is an iPad Pro. This is also one of the devices that we have in one of our assistive technology kits. This is an input device where it has built-in software already coming from the manufacturer. And then you can add in those particular apps that you need that are visual sensing, where it'll watch your eye movements, the blinking of your eyes. Those are like mouse movements. When you move your eyes, the cursor will follow your eye movements. You blink your eye, it's like clicking on the mouse. It also has voice recognition where you could talk to it and tell it where to go and what to do. There are different apps that you can add on to these devices where it'll help you in your day-to-day life. This is an alternate input device. In the picture, you see a mouse device that allows you to move the cursor on the screen with your mouth. You can push on it or blow into it. It'll click just like a mouse would. There are some other examples which include adaptive keyboards, expanded keyboards, ergonomic mouses, pointing systems, and then you have like head direction or mouth operated pointing devices, which you see in the picture right there. Those are just to name a few. Another alternate output device is your Braille devices, Braille embossers, screen reading software, screen magnifying software, and large monitors. I have some pictures of a few things as far as magnifiers and screen magnifiers that we'll get into in just a few minutes. This is your assistive technology. Now, just like I was saying with that iPad, you have your Macintosh computers or handheld devices that, like I said, have software automatically built into them. They are very helpful. So You can go into your accessibilities, go into your settings, go into your accessibilities on those devices, and you could try some of that software out and see how you like them. Hearing and listening aids. Now, there's all types of hearing and listening aids for those that are hearing impaired. And they include assistive listening devices, hearing aids, infrared personal amplifier systems, TV amplifiers or TV decoders, visual signaling, alerting systems. These are just to name a few of the things or the technology that we have in our office that could be loaned out and tested and used before products are even bought. This is one of the listening devices that is in our office. The individual that has the hearing impairment will put headphones on and they could talk to an individual. And what this device does, it will take out a lot of the background noises. That person that with a disability can hear the person that they're talking to more clearly. It takes all that muffling and, like I said, the noises in the background. I have an app that is on my phone, and I would like this app to read this next slide.
And reading out, VC on and reading aids. Here is a diverse array of products designed to assist people who are blind or visually impaired. Screen magnification software, screen reader or narration software, optical character recognition software, braille translation software, electronic video magnifiers, standalone handheld, personal computer access. Wearable, optical character recognition devices, standalone, portable and wearable, braille input technology, braille output technology, applications, apps on phone, share screen breakout, FIO.
So that application, I have an iPhone. I use that myself when I have dim lighting and I forget my glasses at home and I'm trying to read a menu or I'm trying to do something and the writing is too small. Like I'm in the store and I want to see what the ingredients are in a particular item. I'll pull that app out and I'll hold it up to the app and it'll read what's on that app. Just like it read what's on the screen, it can do that. So I just wanted to share that with you to show you that there are so many different technologies out there and different apps that are used for those people that are visually and hearing impaired. This right here is a visual aid. And it is called the Compact 6 HD Speech. And what this device is, it comes with a stand where you can put a book down underneath it and it can scan that book and it can read that book. Or it's got a pocket pouch that you can hook to your belt and you can take with you. And it can read text or it can magnify text where you can see it for yourself. Let's say, for instance, you're colorblind. It'll change the screen colors for you to help you see the wording more clearly, depending on your visual aid needs. This right here is called the Orcam My Eye 2. It comes with a pair of glasses and a little device that clips onto the glasses. And whatever you're looking at and whatever you're reading, that will read the text for you. So wherever you're looking at, that little device will read, like if you're reading a book or you're reading a menu or whatever you're reading or wherever you're looking, that device will read that text for you. If you have an individual that has a disability, whether it's yourself, your family member, friend, whatever, this right here is the number where you can call to contact us or contact our organization to speak with a representative, to get in contact with someone if you want to be a part of our program. That number is 512-936-6400. You have Jonathan Mize, who led this presentation off. He is the business relations coordinator. You have Giovanni Terencio, which is a community outreach and awareness specialist or program specialist, and myself, which is also a business relations coordinator within the Central Texas region area. Yeah, there's our contact information. If you ever you have any questions, you have any concerns, or if you just don't remember the last two slides and you want to get in contact with us, by all means, send us an email, copy down those phone numbers, and we will answer your questions, find out your questions, research your questions, or point you in the right direction.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.